It's time for a little Funky Friday. From their funky hidden headquarters, your hosts, Keith and Gerry.
Hey, everyone. It's me, Keith, hosting today. How is everyone doing?
Fair to partly cloudy.
Doing great, mate. How are you doing, mate?
I am all right. First up, we have Six. Six, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Keith? I feel really good today.
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. I get to work.
Hey. I'm happy to work with you.
Yeah.
And then we have Stephen Otten.
Good afternoon, sir. How is everyone? We just went over that, didn't we? I'm off to a great start.
Good. Viking.
Hi, mate. Glad to be here all the time, as always.
Jace.
Hello, everyone. I just want people to remember I'm not Swedish. I'm just a bad Norwegian.
You know what? I'm going to have to call you that. That's your new nickname, Bad Norwegian.
Hey, Sweden! Not Swedish, Mac, the Norwegian.
Oh, fuck. But yeah, I am doing up and down.
Yeah.
But I'm fine.
Good. Zax, buddy.
I'm here.
How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Okay, so hey, this has been an interesting week. Mm-hmm. Seriously, everyone. There's been a lot of really cool stuff that has happened. And first of all, I just want to wish everyone a happy Friday. Mr. Tickle Trunk, who's already in the room. Sucks. How you doing? And Captain Trek. Wow. That's okay, Mr. Tickle Trunk. You can catch us later on the replay. Socks, hello again. Captain Trek. Okay, so let's just get to it. First and foremost, let's just start with the big story, okay? Which is Marcia Lucas.
My hero.
Oh, my
Everybody's
gosh. Hero. Oh. You know what? I didn't think I really needed to hear any more Star Wars related series. Slip up there. But you know what? This is welcome to hear. Okay. Everybody familiar with how this works, or at least what the situation was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very much so.
Well, let me at least just read it off here. This is from Variety. Star Wars editor Marcia Lucas slams Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and sequel trilogy. They don't get it, she says. Marcia Lucas, the Oscar-winning editor of the original Star Wars, wasn't very happy with Disney's sequel trilogy. She and producer Kathleen Kennedy and director J.J. Abrams don't get it. And the storylines are terrible. This according to an interview for the late J.W. Rinsler's book, Howard Casuan, A Producer's Life, which examines the prolific producer's life, including his time on the Star Wars franchise. I like Kathleen. I always liked her. She was full of beans. She was really smart and really bright, really wonderful woman, and I liked her husband, Frank. I liked them a lot. Now that she's running Lucasfilm and making movies, it seems to me that Kathy Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And J.J. Abrams is writing these stories. When I saw that movie, when they killed Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. I thought, you don't get the Jedi. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. You're getting rid of Han Solo, Lucas says in the book. Gosh, I love this woman. Wow.
I will say it.
Yeah, and later in the book too, he also talks about how George Lucas kind of felt trapped and stuff, and called out Kathleen basically and stuff like that in the book.
you know, I know they got a divorce. I know that around everything with that, she's been persona non grata, but it does really feel good when someone of her stature and someone that has been involved with Star Wars since well before anyone else, having been married to George, she has an intimate knowledge of what George was originally shooting for and what he wanted. And she was one of the, I'd say, the three people that helped George figure out the direction he wanted to go with these movies and these characters originally. So she has a really deep knowledge of who these characters are, what their purpose was, and what they were attempting to accomplish. And so, gosh, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love this woman. She's great.
And you know what? Also, Keith, the fact that she came out in the defense of her own work, of course, but also her ex-husband's, talks about her highly, you know, like any other person would have just, no, he's my ex-husband or something, saw him, you know, something like that. And she just went out there and defended this thing. Like, you don't get it. You don't get it like George did and all those people that were involved in the beginning did. You know? And, I mean, yeah, she divorced him, and you can't blame only one person in a relationship. It's two people, you know, and it was also a difficult time for both of them. She could not get pregnant, and then Lucas was diagnosed with diabetes, and then he became a workaholic to finish Star Wars. So then it's, I mean, a lot of complications, but that is out the window once you see the work that they made together, that they did together. And in her case, I think that it speaks highly of her that she came out and defended that piece of work from her ex-husband, and also that she contributed to it, you know?
Well, as an editor, that is part of what you do. You are a creative. And again, as I keep saying, she, having been married to the man, she had a much deeper knowledge of these characters than most, including Kathleen Kennedy. I just think that overall, you know, it would have been easy for her, as you said, not to say anything. But the fact that she did, and the fact that it got out, I think this is the kind of thing that people that have had problems with the Disney films have been trying to say. Not everyone, I think, is trying to be an a-hole about it. You know, a lot of us are fans because we love these characters. We love these stories.
Yeah, we're passionate fans.
That's right.
That's right.
We again, I've never started out wanting to wish anyone even remotely connected with the Disney films any ill, you know, and I still haven't. I feel no animosity. I just feel kind of hurt as a fan. And the fact that they just seem to want to just treat anyone who may have been a fan or of a certain age badly. And that's fine. That means you just don't want my money, you know?
Yeah.
But let me at least ask this. Do you think that this particular timing of the release of this is something that would be very helpful to Mr. Bob Chapek, who is running Disney right now and has been having certain problems with Kathleen Kennedy?
Yeah, the timing is quite curious also, because we have been saying in the past how Chapek is one who takes care of money a lot. And I have always said, since we started talking about this, that he's going to keep Kathy mainly because of monetary reasons, you know. It's going to be more expensive for him to get rid of her. So I suppose that it's also, you know, like trying to further a little bit more this whole thing of, yeah, well, Kathy maybe doesn't get it or didn't get it with the sequel trilogy, but we're going to keep her anyways, you know, and we're going to keep on going because it's the best for us. And I think that maybe they are going to go along the lines of, well, now she's on another position. She's not really managing any creative stuff right now. That is up for Favreau and Filoni, but she's leading the boat well, let's say, because she keeps everyone on budget and on schedule, which is something that she used to do anyways when she started working with Lucas and Spielberg, Indiana Jones and all those things.
That's true. It's very true. Now we just had it up here on the screen. We want to wish our friend T-shirted historian to get well soon, because it seems that he's been diagnosed with the fear bug. Wow, dude! Seriously, get well soon. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Get well, T-shirt. We love you.
Yeah, T-shirt. Get better, mate.
Good luck, buddy.
And Martin Acosta Santana. Greetings.
Hola.
Love it when you're in here, dude. Let's see. And Chris, let's go backwards up to Chris. They used to praise her as the savior of Star Wars and discredit George. Now she's putting their heroes down. You're right.
Yep.
You're right. Look, I have said before with Gerry that it is difficult to a certain extent to be a producer, okay? To be one who is meant to help work out a lot of the problems that come up during the production of a film. I will give her that. But it just seems, well, not seems, it pretty much does appear that she had her own agenda when George asked her to take over and become the head of Lucasfilm. And she went ahead and just did what she had to do, and or what she felt she had to do. Which, again, if you're someone, I still don't get why she still has fans, considering that, the whole Forces female thing. And you've had, 5 Star Wars films, and none of them directed by women.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
just
true.
Call me funny on that one, but I mean, if this has been your push up to this point, I would like to say there are actually women out there who are Star Wars fans. And
there's one right here.
Of 6.
Yes, Keith.
6. Look, how do you feel about this entire situation with Kathleen Kennedy and the direction of Star Wars, at least on behalf of Disney?
It's a horrific clusterfuck, with as giant of an IP as Star Wars is, for what they've done. And I'm not even talking about what they've done to the fans, because they are directly responsible for a lot of misery on myself, my friends, and the fandom in general. But what they've done to the IP, what they've done as far as earning potential, they just took a big shit, a big runny, stinky, C. Diffie shit all over it. And I don't understand why. It boggles my mind. You cannot tell me that the new generation of fans, quote unquote, would not have bought into George Lucas using George Lucas's story treatments.
Yeah.
For the sequels. I don't buy it, because they loved the originals. They loved the prequels. I love the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
So
Same here.
I don't understand why, and I that's something I would like an answer for, is why did you feel that you had to so drastically go off the deep end and down into the sewer to make these sequel movies? They're terrible. They're just terrible. And I wanted to love them. I wanted to go into that theater and come out just doing cartwheels and dancing with happiness and bliss, like I did when I came out of all the other Star Wars movies. I saw Star Wars in the theater when I was 5 years old. And to be where we are now, it's horrible. It's just it's a crime what they've done. I don't understand why they did it.
Wow, it makes me want to drink. It really makes me want to drink.
I want to pop pills.
We talked about this on my show yesterday, that Chris, he doesn't drink normally, but after watching Star Wars Visions, he wanted to start drinking.
Yeah. Look, let me ask about it. Let me segue into Star Wars Visions.
Oh man, don't get me started.
But you know what? That's part of why we here. It's TGIF.
Yeah, I know.
Let's have some fun with this. Look, you're amongst friends. Okay, seriously. There's no. This is a non-judgment zone here. You're surrounded by friends.
Let
me again. Why don't you set up exactly what this is for those that don't know?
It's a big fucking clusterfuck, and they proved us right when it comes to cloning with Luke, because you have two episodes in this Visions show that is kind of canon, but they say it's not canon, but it's still canon. So one of the episodes is called The Twins, and it's Car and AM.
Well, hold on. Let's at least define what Star Wars Visions actually is. Okay, Star Wars Visions.
Try hard anime that doesn't feel like anime. It feels like a Hollywood anime product, and they just try to take Star Wars in it.
Quite convenient, don't you think? Also, that now manga is outselling comic books, and all of a sudden, Disney is betting on animation from Japanese style. Quite convenient, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea of allowing producers of anime to have their own quote unquote vision of a popular American IP may not be original, although for Star Wars, it's definitely something that speaks to the heart of what George Lucas was trying to get to creatively, considering The Hidden Fortress being one of those films that was essential,
influential
to the creation of Star Wars.
One of the episodes is just about a Padawan who becomes rock star, a pop punk rock star with anime rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the episodes. But yeah, the twins with Car and AM, they are twins who were cloned and cultured in the dark side of the Force on Exegol by Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the characters, they look like Luke. Of course they do, because that's what they are kind of cloned by. Because when you read a comic, they also hint with the hand of Luke and cloning at the same time as the father of Rey is a clone of Palpatine, and a lot of stuff like that. So that's a thing me and Chris have been talking about a lot. And with this story, that proved us right when it comes to the Luke cloning and what they're trying to do. And you have another episode called The Ninth Jedi, and that's long after the Jedi have faded into legend, generations after events of Star Wars, The Rise of Soy Milker. Yeah, so...
Well, now you are a big anime fan.
I'm a big anime fan and Star Wars fan, yeah.
And you did not care for this particular collaboration.
No. I watched 2 episodes and I just want to forget them, and I fucking despise it. It's a big clusterfuck. Like I said, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't feel like anime even. It feels like it's just a Hollywood product when they try to make anime. And
would you say that this is not as good as, say, what they did with the Matrix? As far as a lot of the Animatrix that they put out?
Animatrix are golden compared to this. And Animatrix, I love Animatrix. I own Animatrix, the collection here and the DVD. This is, like I'm going to say, I hate this show as much as I hate the sequels. So that says a lot.
Wow.
Okay.
And they even change how lightsabers work when it comes to those episodes with that are kind of canon but not canon to the story. They can breathe in space. They can, do a lot of weird shit.
Oh, well, why am I surprised? I mean, they allowed Leia to basically do the same thing. And okay, yeah.
Yeah, so no, I don't recommend the show at all. I despise it, but hey, to the people who like it, kudos to you. I'm happy for you, but for me personally, I wish this was never made in the first place. If I want anime, Star Wars anime, we can find better stuff on YouTube of YouTubers who have like made anime Star Wars that actually looks like anime, feels like anime, and got the feels of Star Wars and anime at the same time, with heart and passion.
Wow.
That's how I'm gonna.
Okay, that's pretty harsh, man. Okay, well, see, I was looking at possibly sitting down and watching that, but I mean, if someone who's truly into anime like you are is saying that's a no go for you, I guess I'm gonna have to pay attention to that recommendation. Wow. Oh, and let's
Keith,
see.
I would say my suggestion is to watch the first one. The first one.
Really?
I liked that first one, and I liked another one called The Elder, but the Duel and The Elder I enjoyed just on their own. So that's my taste, but I did enjoy two of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I may come back around to it. I don't know. It's again, Disney Star Wars just really feels like a complete cluster F to me outside of what Jon Favreau is involved in. I just can't understand where they're headed with a lot of this stuff. And while on paper this may have seemed like a really cool project, between what they did with the Animatrix and what they had done with Batman, Legends of the Dark Knight, I think.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah. That one was also really well done. If it's not as good as those two projects, then I probably need to stay far away from this, with the exception of 2 episodes, right, Zex?
Yeah, the first one, The Duel, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and my kid liked it too, and it was very Kurosawa inspired, and that I know George took some inspiration from some of his films, so I thought it fit for that. I didn't look at anything in the series as being canon. I wasn't aware that there was canon in these, but if there are, then they definitely could have screwed things up. Some are ridiculous.
Yeah, they even use the Holdo maneuver in the show.
Wow!
Just with a lightsaber that can stretch out and have different colors, and he's destroying the crystal that his sister has in the suit, so she doesn't get sliced in two, but the ship is getting sliced in two, but not her.
That made no sense.
And that's one of the episodes that are canon, basically, with the twins that are based clones of Luke on Exegol.
Yeah, they were breathing in space, and it was over the top, pretty bad. But the two that I saw that were more grounded, based on
the Elder one is actually centuries after the death of Bane.
Okay.
The character.
I didn't know who that was.
The one who made the role of two.
Well, you know what I believe, mates, also with this thing is that Keith is right, there is like no direction to this thing. And not only to Star Wars Visions, I'm talking about all of Star Wars right now taking place. Like Favreau and Filoni know where they want to go, but anybody else doesn't really know where they want to be and where they want to go. And the infuriating thing for me, for instance, is that there are some products out there that are fan-made, also inspired by anime and Japanese animation, that deal with or have something about Star Wars, and they look much better than these products, which means that there is talent out there, that this thing can be done, that even Star Wars as a story can be very well adapted and as a universe into that sort of animation, but they just don't want to try, they just want a quick buck, and that's it.
You have that Starfighter anime that were made with some YouTubers way back, and that's really fucking good.
Yeah.
That's the way I want the Star Wars anime to be. That would have been fucking epic. That would have been something that I will fuck with,
Yeah.
That is
really look good.
Wow. Okay.
But
you know what? Let me at least ask this. What would you recommend someone who is a big Star Wars fan watch as far as anime? What would be your one recommendation?
Of anime? Of the episodes or just anime in
well, of Star Wars, but I mean, if you're a fan of Star Wars,
Yeah.
what would you recommend? What would be the one anime that you would recommend someone who's a fan of Star Wars watch?
Oh god, fucking damn it, dude! I watch a lot of weird anime, a lot of love anime. But I don't remember. There is like one anime that I do really enjoy, but I don't remember the name right now. But the fun part with that anime is that they actually mention Star Wars in the anime. I don't know, to be honest. Gundam, yeah, Gundam could have been a good choice with Chris there. So I kind of want to say Gundam, to be honest, yeah, because that can really feel like Star Wars. Like you could have fit like in a Star Wars universe in a way, and they have like your kind of lightsabers in the show. So no,
I know that R&B is a big fan of Gundam, so that would be your. You know what? I think that's a really good recommendation.
Gundam is considered, yeah. Yes, I would go for Gundam myself if I'm gonna recommend an anime.
Huh. Okay. Because again, it's difficult to try to equal Star Wars, but I mean, if you can come close, especially in the world of anime, seems like Gundam is definitely for you then.
Yeah.
You know what? We have another story here that has come to light. It was the breaking news today.
Oh.
And it is important that I think we get around to this.
Okay.
It was announced today that Russell T Davies is to return as Doctor Who's showrunner after being gone for 12 years. I don't know how many of you on the panel were fans of Doctor Who, let alone fans of Doctor Who when he was running things.
No,
but
I'm trying to get into Doctor Who. I'm not seeing much, but I'm gonna get into it. Of course, I'm not gonna watch the new Doctor Who with the fake Doctor Who, but I'm gonna watch the others. But yeah. So I guess this is good news, or
Russell T Davies is the one that brought us number 9. You know, when he restarted Doctor Who, it started with Chris Eccleston. And he was the one that brought Doctor Who back and helped to establish everything that had been built since then. And I think it was under him that we had one big spinoff that was, let's see. Oh man, now I'm kind of fizzing on the name of the spinoff. We met Captain Jack
Sarah
Harkness.
Jane Chronicles or
that? Yeah, that was also after
that one.
But I mean, we met Captain Jack Harkness was a character that he brought to life during his tenure.
And it's Torchwood, right?
And Torchwood is also a part of that. So
that's the only I have actually seen some of that. That's I didn't even know that was Doctor Who when I was younger. But yeah.
So that's what we have. So
don't forget that silly show called Class.
You know what though? That was post Russell T Davies though. That was after he had already left. But you know what?
After he wiped off.
Oh, thank you, Turd. But again, let me just say this: this was completely unexpected, and as far as I was concerned, this is the only person besides. I mean, the only person really besides J. Michael Straczynski. You know, because it was suggested originally, you know, fans had wanted J. Michael Straczynski to attempt to take over Doctor Who, and they turned him down. And now I think we can understand why, because they were looking at bringing back Russell T Davies. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to the point where I think if Jodie Whittaker is smart, stick around one extra year and see how it is to work with Russell T Davies, because the quality of the scripts will definitely go up big time. You know,
I just have a question with that, Keith, because you know that the BBC is actually the woke thing, that like it's like woke mania in there, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and here's the question: how? First of all, whether it's too little too late, because I know that many Doctor Who fans are just out the door. And with the timeless children, the timeless child, that was it for many of us. And also the fact that he's going to work again for the BBC. And we know that the BBC is super mega woke. And they are trying to do everything in their power to even erase history, like turning Anne Boleyn black and all that. So BBC is a piece of crap that is still holding on to Doctor Who because they know that it makes money for them. But the fact is that I don't really reckon that they're going to allow him to go into directions that they are not happy with.
I think he has a little bit of leeway. A little. Okay? His success in bringing back Doctor Who and everything that came after he left, the first year, I think, really the entire run after he had left, with the exception of Chris Chibnall, he helped to lay the groundwork for. And I think that having him come back now, especially as we're nearing the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, this is timing. They definitely want to do something with the 60th anniversary. I agree with you. I have heard that the BBC has become very, very political at this point.
You can take me word for it, but it has. It definitely has.
I was myself prepared to not like anyone that they came up with, and I personally did not see this coming. This is out of left field, at least as far as I'm concerned. So on the one hand, I'm happy that Russell T Davies is coming back because I enjoyed a lot of what he was able to do with Doctor Who when he brought everything back. I enjoyed all of his Torchwood related stuff, everything he ever did with Captain Jack. I think if there's one person that I would come back to watch their work, it'd be him. But I'm telling you right now, I do agree with you with the way that the BBC has treated everything. If this turns out to be more of the BBC, we're just gonna allow you to be entertained by what we think you need to see, then that's really just gonna kill Who.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's great having Russell T Davies back, but I think fans will be able to know the difference. You'll be able to look at what he was able to do before and compare it to with whatever he creates now. And I don't think really he has much to lose at this point. I had been hearing rumors that he had been wanting to do something, but I mostly heard that he was wanting to do stuff related to Torchwood. This might be his way of actually getting that done.
Yeah.
But I mean, if things are as bad, if not worse than what I've heard, at most, all it's really going to do is just completely sink Doctor Who as an IP. Probably I think this really is the last chance for this IP, at least for the foreseeable future. I think if this does not go well, this could pretty much stop Doctor Who for at least the next 10 to almost 15 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can really be because it's. I feel about this like it's an all or nothing sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would like to say that they know how they dropped the ball with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who, the Timeless Child. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that it's the BBC. They don't admit defeat. They don't admit their mistakes. But if this is like a turn in the right direction, I mean, we are all in for it. But the reality is that many times they have gone out of their way to just double down, triple down on the same bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't get it right, I think that it's going to be it for the Doctor, and it might not recover like it did with Russell,
Yeah. And again, this is with all of the money that they were making at one time. I mean, Doctor Who had reached a point a few years ago where you could definitely say it was one of the three biggest pop culture IPs on the planet. You know, Star Wars, Marvel, Doctor Who, and for I don't know, with what BBC did to it, how quickly they were able to just derail the whole thing, and it has now dropped everything down to a point where they're definitely not moving merchandise like they once did. And I really cannot. I was just recently at a convention in Kansas City a few weeks ago. I didn't see that much Doctor Who stuff. At one point, Doctor Who was everywhere. And now they've managed to just completely reverse all of that in a very short amount of time with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And again, I like Jodie Whittaker. Let me at least just put that out there. I like her as an actress. I think she is a much better actress than what she was allowed to be on Doctor Who. And that I think if she were to at least stay at least 1 year longer and operate, continue to be the Doctor under Russell T Davies, I think he might be able to do something with her. I think he might be able to put her in some proper adventures. I would have loved to have seen what Russell T Davies could have done with Peter Capaldi.
Matt Smith maybe also.
Oh, geez. Just the whole of it. So on the one hand, I'm really happy Russell T Davies is back. But the fact that BBC is still being run by some of the same people that helped get it off track, yeah, that's kind of worrisome. But again, they've already lost a lot. I don't think it's really going to cost me anymore to at least pay attention for a little while longer. And given what Russell T Davies was able to accomplish from before, at the very least, I think it does. I think he deserves at least a year, another season from me. I will watch another season of Doctor Who with him running it. I'll do that. Now, this final season with Jodie and Chibnall, I'm not going to watch that. I'm gone. But as soon as Russell T Davies takes over, I will give him a year. He's earned that from me. So, how about the rest of you?
Well, I think that maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt, as you said, because of him and because of what he did. That I agree with you. And also because he brought one of my favorite doctors, that was David Tennant, So I agree that we can give him a chance. I don't want to give a chance to is the BBC because of what we have spoken about, and because I know that I am positive that it was mandated on Jodie Whittaker that she did not do any research on the character, which she admitted in an interview sometime, that she said, no, I didn't pay attention to the other doctors and I played the Doctor in my own way. I reckon that it was mandated to her that she didn't do that, and that's why she didn't do it. But Russell has a lot of knowledge of the lore and everything. He's passionate about Doctor Who, so then I believe that he's able to do great things with it, and maybe he could go around the woke mandates from BBC, and if he can pull it off, I think that it would be a success, and I would be more than glad to give him a chance, of course, and watch Doctor Who again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
totally
can't say
agree. And I can't say so much about Doctor Who, but for the people who loves Doctor Who, I want to go back on track to what everyone have loved with Doctor Who. Of course, I can feel the same pain when it comes to Star Wars and other stuff, right? So I understand you completely.
Hold on for a moment. It looks like we have Mr. Tom Connors.
Where?
Oh my God! Oh,
I'm gonna beat that some gun up. He owes me $5.
Tom, thank you for coming by.
Oh, hello. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Tom.
Quit following me.
I'm doing so much better when you came in.
Someone sent me a link. I click on the link.
You know what? I wish it were my idea, but look, again, I if I've never told you this, you are welcome anytime you want to come by. You have a permanent invite.
Where's that Gerry guy?
he's having to lay down. He's
right.
feeling kind of old today.
I thought you came for me, Tom.
Well, that could be construed in many different ways. But we're
Phrasing.
You.
No,
stay between them, Vikings. Stay between them.
Sent me an invite, and I said I had a little bit of time, so I thought I'd hop in here and say hello. So, hello.
And hello
Tom.
to you.
Hello.
Look,
Hello,
let
Tom.
me ask you, Tom, because I like your take on things. Were you a fan of Doctor Who?
Not particularly. I mean, I've seen a few episodes here and there growing up, but I never really was a Whovian or whatever. So, I mean, I hope that the latest news is good news for Who fans, but I also understand those who have just had enough and walked away, and nothing that can be done to really fix it now. So, I understand both sides of the coin on it.
And of course, I've listened to a lot of what you've had to say about the whole Marcia Lucas situation. It's good stuff, Benny.
I mean, specifically when it comes to the sequel films, I thought that was pretty damning, especially of Kathleen Kennedy. And it was really funny that she didn't even have the time of day to mention Rian Johnson, but yet she mentioned all the atrocities that he had done to the trilogy or the series, or however you want to put it. But yeah, no, I think it was well timed, even though I don't think it was planned that way. I mean, these comments were from years ago, and sadly, we just lost the author not too long ago. So I feel like this was something that was in the works for a while. So I don't feel like it was anybody using it as any kind of 4D chess move or anything like that. I think it was just one of those things that, I mean, when somebody like Marcia Lucas speaks, you listen, especially when she's saying something about this and she has something to say about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've called her like the mother of Star Wars in so many ways. I mean, she's a little bit more humble about that, but I mean, like her and many other people, I feel like they all contributed to this thing that George built with them. And, if anybody was close enough to George than anybody, it was her. So if anything, her opinion resonates loudly, even though a lot of people may not know exactly who she is, or she hasn't necessarily been in the spotlight in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, she's still a force to be reckoned with in the industry. When her name is brought up, people know who she is. I mean, maybe young kids may not know who she is now, but yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be something that's going to carry for a while. This is not something that Kathy's going to be able to just shake off.
Oh no, she's got to deal with it. I mean, she can ignore it, but the damage is done. I mean, the mother of Star Wars has spoken, and so she's going to have to make a decision as to whether or not she wants to rise to the occasion or continue to go down this path that she's currently going down.
She's throughout this entire book. There's so many quotes from her. She's quite forthcoming with everything that she said. And I just wonder if at some point the rest of her interview is going to come out. Are there things that were held back that were too controversial or too damning to be released at the time? And maybe there'll be, sometime in the future, like a special edition version of the book where there's more shit thrown by her.
Well, if I remember correctly, this was all for the book about Howard.
Right. Right.
So I don't know how much more that can be released in relation to Howard, although I would like to see all of these comments in a big book about Star Wars. I mean, the official, tome about really the entire Star Wars galaxy. There's quite a few individuals that haven't really said anything these last few years that I would love to hear from about this latest trilogy from Disney. And
if you sit down for an interview about Howard Kazanjian, because I can't remember how to pronounce his name. But you're gonna let Luke because that Howard. I'll call him Howard.
Yeah,
But
Howard.
you sit down, you sit down for an interview about it, and you start talking about the prequels and how you went out to your car and you cried. You're gonna use that time. I would use that time to just vent and just let it all out. And you're not necessarily just gonna stay on about the subject matter or where you're trying to direct your comments toward, which was Howard. So I just there's got to be more. There's got to be more in the vault of Marcia Lucas's brain, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to more interviews from all different kinds of people coming out.
Mm.
There are
coming out.
That's all you have to say, Tom.
No, Howard. I mean, let's also look at it this way. Like I said, sadly, the author Rinsler just passed away. What was it, last month? Was it? It was really recently.
Yeah.
J.W. Rinsler passed away. So like he just recently passed, and Howard Kazanjian, the guy's 79 years old. I mean, I'm sure he's at this point where he's got zero fucks to give.
Mm-hmm.
This was probably something that has kind of been like, you know what, this is going to burn some bridges and this is going to, light some fires. But hey, why not? I mean, you get to a point where what do you have to lose? I guess I hate to put it that way, but this is what we need. We need people who are respected in the community. We need people in both sides, right? Because as I brought up, Marcia Lucas is somebody who's respected in the film community, and she's respected by the fans of Star Wars because she was there from the start. She was Mrs. George Lucas. I mean, so she carries weight, and if it's people like her and other people that need to speak, now if like Spielberg or something were to say something, that would be holy shit, would shit fly. Like if he'd be like, "Oh, I love Kathy, but I just don't understand what she did with the Star Wars films." Right there would be something that would just destroy her image, like completely.
Yeah, it would. And and let's not forget that Kathleen Kennedy snubbed Marcia Lucas when they had all of the celebrating those who had made Star Wars and were focusing on women. Marcia's name was never brought up.
Is that Gerry? His lazy ass ain't in here.
It's the ghost of Gerry.
The ghost of Gerry. Well, Gerry, you're 100% correct, and I think that's what's really funny is that we just had the fade out, fade in thing here not too long ago, where Kathleen Kennedy was celebrating women, and you're right. A lot of people pointed out you did not bring up Marcia Lucas at all. It's like, so yeah, that's a great point. Why aren't you on the show again?
Well, he's not feeling well. Gary's
he
not
says
feeling
that,
well.
but he's probably just diddling.
He probably ate like a whole box of turkeys, and now his insulin is through the roof. But Kathleen Kennedy probably is like barely even remembering that Marcia Lucas was there because all she was thinking about was what kind of coffee to make that day,
or if Indy gets the dog or not.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
But this is also another thing that we tend to forget, or that these people tend to forget, is the history of the franchise they're working with. Like this Polygon article that said, "Oh no, the Star Wars vision." Goes out of their way, goes around the myth of the Skywalkers and the Skywalker saga and gets out of Luke's shadow. But, I mean, they don't understand that has already been done before, for example, by the EU with the Knights of the Old Republic and all those things. So they are always tripping themselves over with their ignorance. They are completely ignorant of what happened before. And that's also something that angers the fans, because as fans, we know who was there. We know who directed. We know who wrote it. We know who edited this thing, who was there responsible for special effects, who wrote the music. We know the names of all the actors and all the characters. And they can't fool us. And they try every single time. So I think that that's also why we are so pissed at these things. It's not that I want them to die tomorrow. It's just that they are disrespectful because they think that we are stupid, and we're not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I think it would be kind of telling if Mr. Richard Chew were to say something. It would really be telling to have anyone connected with ILM say something at this point.
But it has to be somebody who's not. I mean, and again, I'm not saying that any of the people you just mentioned aren't big names, but I mean, like I said, Steven Spielberg is somebody like, or even if George himself were to say, God, I mean, looking like, even if he were to say something like, looking back, if I had the choice, I probably would have put other people in charge. Even just saying something like that without naming names would be another strike against her. And like, that's what you just, as long as she consistently gets strikes against her from people that, people know and people will listen to and the media cannot ignore, the more it's harder for them to say, oh, but this was a success and Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars is a success. And, all the diversity she brought to Star Wars is nothing but successful,
I think another name to add to that would be Martin Scorsese. If Scorsese were to, if he were to say, I didn't think that the Disney stuff was as strong as what we had seen from what George was able to bring with his last 6 movies,
And too bad he didn't mention that along when he mentioned the Marvel films.
Yeah.
Too bad he didn't go sorry, go ahead, Mikey.
No, I was just going to say that it's also difficult for these people like Scorsese or Spielberg for newer generations, because they are like, who's this guy? Like they only see an old man there, because that's what they are saying on Twitter, right? Whenever you bring up, or when that happened with Martin Scorsese, they were like, sit down, grandpa. They don't understand.
You're right.
That these people are great filmmakers and that they are respected not only by fans, but also inside the community, inside the industry.
That is very, very true. And I see it beyond just movies too. Like, not to get into the political side of it, but I got into an argument on Twitter the other day because Rolling Stone blasted Eric Clapton. And some idiot was like going off on me about like, oh, Eric Clapton's old and irrelevant. I'm like, because I called Rolling Stone irrelevant. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It was people like Eric Clapton that made Rolling Stone what it was.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't give a shit what you think about him being old. But if you are anybody who loves music and wants to deny what somebody like Eric Clapton brought to the table, then you are fucking ignorant as can be, son. Like,
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, again, it's another reason why it's important to continue to have things like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, so a lot of these younger people can learn who actually helped to build the world of music. Period.
Yeah.
Full stop. Another name that could be added would be someone like Edgar Wright. If Edgar Wright were to come out and say, these Disney films for him haven't been the most fulfilling films as far as Star Wars is concerned in his ability, and that would mean something to a lot of the younger people that are watching movies, because Edgar Wright would be right, or he's at a point. He's at that age. He's someone that a lot of people in their 20s would know and kind of respect. But you're right. Thinking about it, pulling all these names out of my head, a lot of these people that actually worked on Star Wars, they're quote unquote old people.
Yeah. Well, and also common thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Viking.
No, you go ahead now, Tom.
I was just going to say Howard Kazajian and Marcia Lucas said one thing that was the same, and that was they don't get Star Wars. We need more people to come out and just say that. They just don't get Star Wars, because then in that way they're not damning the classics, but they're bringing up the point is you took something that wasn't yours and you clearly didn't understand it, and you're trying, the whole Jurassic Park line from Jeff Goldblum. You got excited and you just wanted to slap it on a lunchbox, and now you're trying to sell it. You're trying to sell it before you understood it. Like they didn't take the time to understand what Star Wars was before they just wanted to package it and send it out to the masses.
Well, George Lucas has said that about people who don't understand the dialogue in Attack of the Clones. He said that you just don't understand Star Wars. So there's different levels of understanding Star Wars. I love Attack of the Clones. I know that there's people on this panel who don't love Attack of the Clones, and
I love it myself.
And that's cool. Thank you, Chase.
Thank you.
So to say. But when you talk about the heart of Star Wars, there's barely even remnants of that in what they've given us recently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing I've always defended the prequels against is when people go, "Oh, well, the dialogue's wooden and shitty." It's like, well, it's not the dialogue's fault. Go watch the first 3 movies. It's the same type of dialogue. It's just delivered by different actors under different conditions.
Yeah.
And you know, that's all it is. It's the same kind of dialogue, and I get it as a fair assessment, but at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that it's still George Lucas's type of dialogue. It's this type of stuff he always writes. Harrison Ford famously said, "You can type this shit, George, but you can't say it." You know, like,
And yet, those, I mean, who doesn't know quotes from those original? Right?
yeah, well, now
Right,
they've become
exactly.
parts of our vernacular. It's just like Star Trek and anything else. You know, may the force be with you. If you said that to somebody in 1962, they'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Force me to what? Like, are you threatening me? Are you James Bond?"
1967, 10 years before, if you were to say that, it would mean nothing to anyone. By 1987, there's a lot of people that would get it. They completely understand what you're talking about.
And Alan Ladd was one of those. He's like, "I don't get this shit. You got wizards in here. You got laser swords. You got a talking dog. I don't know what the fuck it is, George, but I liked American Graffiti. Here's $10 million. Go make it."
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty much it. And again, it's I think we've reached a point where I think there is also one additional thing. This isn't just about criticizing Kathleen. What really makes this important is that she also decided to criticize J.J. Abrams. And it's important to continue to bring his name up as well, because he is a sign and a symbol of the current times that we're living. Creatively, I think all of Hollywood now is on board with the way that J.J. Abrams creates projects. The magic box has won. There's nothing in it. The mystery box, I should say, the mystery box. There's nothing in the mystery box, but the mystery box has won out.
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's why I brought up that Rian Johnson was left out. Why? Because it would bother him more that his name wasn't brought up. That's
Well,
why.
maybe she forgot his name.
Well, there could be that, but I think more it's like a jab, because then I think Keith's right as well, Six, about the whole fact that JJ isn't just what Star Wars, you know, he isn't just Star Wars. He's like almost like an icon for all of this shit, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
as
you're
Doomcock calls him, he's a cultural locust, and I agree with that 110%. He's fucked with Star Wars, he's fucked with Star Trek, he's moved on to other things now. He's trying to mess with DC. I mean, the only thing the guy hasn't touched yet that, you know, he arguably hasn't destroyed has been Mission Impossible, but you could still argue that Tom Cruise was really the person who shepherded that along. If it wasn't for him, who's to say what would have happened to that franchise, right? I mean, but no, I think you're right, 110%, Keith. I think the fact that she mentioned her had more to do with this is the kind of guy we need to avoid making these movies.
Go ahead.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the worst part is the irony that he was at some point Steven Spielberg's protege, you know, and then this is what happens.
Destroy franchises. Yep.
There are a lot of people that Steven Spielberg has, you know, helped along. JJ just seems to be someone that there was a time he had a monochrome of talent. There was something there. And he's used that to accomplish everything that he has up to this point. And as Tom was just saying, he's used it to affect the entire industry now. And now he's trying to do that with Superman to a certain extent.
And they don't see him as a problem in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Like the quote I heard from... Oh, go ahead, Jace.
No. At the same time, you know, J.J. Abrams is also making live action of anime now, so
another area for him to fuck up.
Yeah, so he's
well, no, and that's what I'm saying, because they're not going to get rid of him, because the quote I heard from 2 separate sources about him at over at DC was Hamada brought him in with the express notion of having him do to DC what he did for Star Trek. That was the quote given to me twice verbatim. And I'm like, these people are fucking delusional.
Yeah.
I like JJ's Star Trek.
I like certain elements of it, but again, like, here's the thing with JJ. That's why he works with so many people, is he can find things that, you know, he's good at doing the flashy things, right? Yeah. And the mystery box works to a point, right? The mystery box works, but sooner or later you have to go, but what's in the box, JJ? And he has to give you that answer, and he's not good at delivering that. We've seen that time and time again.
Tom,
Yes.
well, do you remember what he told? You were talking once on your show about how JJ had been talking to. Oh man, what director was that?
Was it Tarantino or?
Yeah, Tarantino. What he had told Tarantino about working with Star. Yeah, but do you remember what you were saying about that? How he was trying to get Tarantino to understand how all of this stuff worked, and Tarantino just wasn't getting it, and how JJ just told him that basically just do anything you want because it didn't really matter.
He said nobody gets it. Just do what you want.
With Star Trek.
He was just worried about hanging on to the license at that point, and getting Quentin Tarantino involved with Star Trek would be a big get for him. But let's look at it this way. Here's another great point. You brought up Steven Spielberg and JJ being his protege. Well, there was plenty of people that were George's proteges that weren't brought into this. And one specifically, I'll tell you a story. Joe Johnston worked on all 3 of the original Star Wars films.
Yeah.
And he came to George and he says, I'm burnt out. I can't do this shit no more. I'm leaving the industry. And George is like, look, I get where you're coming from. I've been through a lot of stuff the last few years myself, but I'm going to make a proposition for you. I will pay for you to go to school and pay you as an employee at the same time. And if when you're done with going to school to be a director, you don't want to direct, whatever, that's your choice. But he goes, I think you'll be a good director. So he sent Joe Johnston to school, paid for his way to go to school, and paid him as an employee the whole time without any expectation out of the other end. Joe Johnston came out of school and he directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes. And he has also directed The Rocketeer
and
the Captain America movie.
Now, where the fuck is Joe Johnston to direct a Star Wars film? Where is Ben Burt to direct a Star Wars film? This is the guy who created all the sounds for Star. He is literally the voice of R2-D2.
Yeah. And his baby also, right? His kid at the time. He was also used for the R2-D2 voice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, literally, not only did he create it with the electronic part, but when it goes, wow, or that's him. That's Ben Burt.
Yeah.
And as I had said earlier, for someone like Kathleen, who is all about the Force is female, the fact that she was able to get away with making 5 Star Wars films and not one single woman was hired to direct says a lot.
Yep.
it says a lot because as far as I'm concerned, it's talk from her.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that in the entire industry that she wasn't able to find one female director that was not a Star Wars fan.
She already had one there, like she had Howard finished Solo, and then Bryce Dallas Howard was there, I mean, she has directed some Mandalorian episodes.
Yeah,
Bryce
but that
is a good director.
You can't lay that at her feet because that comes in under that's more about the creative team that was really working on that. Kathleen Kennedy is the person in charge of Lucasfilm, meaning that the directors all fall under her. So she gets to decide who directs what. And you would have to make that. That's definitely something that she could have controlled at any time.
Has she ever said that she talked to any female directors?
I've never heard anything.
Not that I have heard.
In relation
Nothing
to
I've
that.
heard either.
And not one name, not one.
Not until the Solo business, or not Solo, the Obi-Wan business.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're having that other female director from Mandalorian take over that entire shoot she did.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember her name now.
And that's Disney Plus. That is not
Disney
a major
Plus.
Motion picture. That is not unveiling everything that Lucasfilm is able to do
up until
on
the
behalf
Patty
of
Jenkins thing, which, come on, let's be real. That's a fucking publicity stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like Leslie Edland also, that she's going to create something for Disney Plus. Like just after The Mandalorian was successful and after they also announced all these other projects, okay, so let's bring her down also to create this all-female cast of characters or something. So why didn't you bring all these people that are now coming out? That's my point, why didn't you bring them up, for the movies? Like you had Bryce Dallas Howard's father there finishing a movie, why do you think you also get her for another project? You know,
That's not a bad point. And
Leslie Headland.
Leslie, the Leslie Headland thing was just
She's making the
publicity.
Acolyte, that are the final days of the High Republic era.
Well, let's go one step further.
Like
This just proves that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't even believe in her own movement or message. 'Cause otherwise, you believe in it so hardcore, lady, then why isn't Phoebe Waller-Bridge writing and directing Indiana Jones 5?
for example.
I'm not saying anybody wants that, but hey, if you're gonna virtue signal, stand by your fucking laurels and do this thing.
Kathy Yan, if you were to announce tomorrow that Kathy Yan was going to direct a brand new Star Wars film, I mean, again, there you go. How was Warner Brothers able to get Kathy Yan before you?
Yeah, it's like she doesn't really believe in what she's preaching all the time, and at the same time, she has no idea how to be a creative producer and a creative president of sorts. She just knows how to handle money and the logistics of the thing, but she doesn't really have any creativity to go and, okay, we can do this and we can do that. But what I see as well as a flaw in her character is that she seems to think that she has to do everything on her own, and she does not sort of rely on a team like, okay, who can we get? And then, she's surrounded by yes men all the time, I suppose, or something.
Well,
like that.
that's the problem with her team. The Lucasfilm Story Group is that team. They are the worst group of people to have around. Look, if it were up to me, if I were taking over Lucasfilm right now, that'd be my first thing is to get rid of every single one of those people. They are the worst people around. Just get rid of them, get them off the property, and just start working on bringing Star Wars back.
Yeah,
and there is no one within that story group that's worth anything creatively.
Well, what few are there are keeping quiet.
Yeah,
because they're scared. I mean, I've talked to people in Lucasfilm. People have been there since before the Disney buyout knowledge, and I don't want to get into too specific because it could out who they are, but they've all said the same thing.
We won't tell Tom.
I know you won't, but if I even get into specifics, I could even pinpoint who they could possibly be. And I don't want them people losing their jobs or being attacked or anything like that, because that's what they've said. It's a toxic environment, right? Like, I mean, I've heard some goofy stories about when George ran the place, and half of them I don't even fucking believe, right? Like, there's even like the whole, don't make eye contact with George or don't talk to him in the hallway or blah blah blah, this or that or the other. Right. The only bit of that I can believe is don't stop George and talk to him about how much you love Star Wars, because he's probably heard it 500,000 fucking times. We get it. You love Star Wars. You work for him. I'm sure that's the last thing he needs to hear right now because he's a busy guy. But outside of that, I don't believe that other shit. I've never heard anything about George being unapproachable. I know people who have met him, and they said he's a really nice guy to talk to. And I'm sure, if you walked up to him and told him, hi, I'm so-and-so, I love Star Wars, but I love your other work, and, and weren't a real freak out jerk about it, like, he'd probably talk to you too. I mean, whether you work for him or not,
Well, again, I mean, I think I was saying on with Gerry once that George is now, he's 70. Is he 70? 74?
He was born in 50.
You're talking about George?
Yeah.
No, he was born in 40. Was it 49?
In 45, 44.
44. Okay.
44, yeah.
So, yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah. If George Lucas, he's now 20, I'd say he's a few years away. I mean, we still got a while until he celebrates a centennial. You know that Disney is going to celebrate hard when his centennial comes around of his birth. He has contributed a lot to the entertainment industry, and those who will be in charge of Disney at that time will definitely want to celebrate. He seems to be one of those individuals that is known for being someone that, on the one hand, changed the industry, but on the other hand, didn't trust the industry.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be celebrated for being a maverick. He truly is a maverick. He is an independent filmmaker who just happens to make stuff that even, the mainstream industry loves. And
by that point, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, by that point, I hope they have actually figured it out, because that's a good 20 years out, like you said.
Yeah.
But the problem we have now is you have a buttload of people who don't understand Star Wars. And to go back to a point that Viking was saying before is, and I'm not making an excuse for Kathleen Kennedy, this is just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody who's basically spent her entire career working with people who made nothing but magic, right? Like, she got to produce movies for Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, and George Lucas, Clint Eastwood, stuff like that. People who are basically dream directors and writers to work for.
And
you
they're
don't
all
have to, and in all men, that's a good point as well. But regardless of that point, the point being is, like, she never had to do a goddamn thing, right? Creatively. All she had to do was just be there, make sure things were facilitated. George and Steven and whoever else and Bob had whatever that was they needed on that day to shoot it. And I've made the point a million times over, but it still, goes to stand. If you're any Joe Blow director and calls and says, hey, I need, Brooklyn Bridge shut down so I can shoot something, they're going to hang up on your ass. But if you're Kathleen Kennedy and you call and say, hey, Steven Spielberg wants to use the Brooklyn Bridge on Friday, they'll be like, oh, yes, right away, Miss Kennedy. And it's not because of her, it's because of Steven. And again, so she's been riding off the coattails of, and this gets to your point 6 that you were saying, of these very powerful men all this time. But then that gave her a false sense of, like, oh, okay, well, I must be able to just know what I'm doing here. So first she goes with JJ, which under most circumstances, JJ is a veteran enough to where if he had a decent script, he probably could have made a really kick-ass Star Wars movie. Let's be real. But since the script was compromised from the start and you're stuck with this idea of what Kathleen Kennedy was trying to interject on top of that, then you get to guys like Rian Johnson, to where she was able to control like a puppet, right? And then we see the opposite of that with like Miller and Lord, right? Like, she wasn't able to control them. And to go in, I know a lot more about now than I did about Solo. Like, I heard, so much back then about what happened, but now I know more about why Ron took the job, is because they needed money at the time. And he didn't have anything else going on. He was in really early pre-production of Willow, and that's all they had going forward. And I was told that he's going to direct maybe a movie or two, if that, and then retire and sell Imagine. Guess what? Last week it was announced that Imagine's up for sale, kids.
Wow.
Last week?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Could we have a big sale and maybe go in as a group? And
That'd be nice, but I don't know how much Imagine really has. It's worth a shit anymore. But like,
we could turn it around.
I would be willing to take a shot. I mean, personally, that Imagine Entertainment has just, wow. I mean, I still can't believe it. I mean, I believe you, Tom, but I mean, it's unreal to hear those words that Imagine is up for sale. I can't think of anybody doing anything really big and really good with it. I could see someone like a JJ that would attempt to probably, on some level, would want to do something as far as taking over Imagine and all of its properties.
Were you guys excited when you saw JJ's name attached to the sequels? Because I went out and bought a bunch of his movies, and I was super excited about it.
I was excited in so much as that, given how much he talked about being a Star Wars fan.
Right.
All of the special features related to the 2009 Star Trek film that he made. That was how I was. It's like, okay, he's finally getting a chance to do what he's always wanted to do.
Yeah, I agree. He was the guy for the job at the time. Same thing with Kathleen Kennedy on paper, was the woman or person for the job to take over Lucasfilm on paper.
Yeah.
But if hindsight being 2020, not so much. And again, I still argue J.J. Abrams could probably still make a hell of a fucking Star Wars movie with a good script, because Rise of Skywalker was a beautifully shot film, but it's a piece of shit movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he were actually, if you took Kathleen Kennedy out of the mix and he was making that with George, that probably would have been a better experience.
Because I think that JJ is a more competent director than he is a writer. And when
Well-
he's in charge of the writing, sometimes with all these things that you said, Keith, of the mystery box, all that,
Yeah.
I think that he really drops the ball more than once. So
Yes.
he's a good director. He has a good eye, but he's really difficult for writing. Like really messes
Yes
all
and
up.
no. JJ does have a bit of a pedigree with writing, but I think it's the payoff aspect, right?
Mhm.
I
Well,
mean,
because the thing, for example, for me that I really liked about him was that film with the kids, 8mm. It was called. I
Well,
don't remember.
one of his big movies that he got into the industry with was Regarding Henry, which is actually a pretty well written film. I mean, whether you think it's saccharine garbage or not, it's still, it works as a movie and it pulls you in. And I got this picture. I don't know if you or Six can share it, Keith, but here
I
you
think
go. Here's
Six-
the dream we
I
want.
mean, I think Zach can do it.
Somebody, whoever can share a picture here. I got one down here in the share zone.
Okay.
But here you go.
Share
Look at the look on George's face, though. Look at these two talking. Like, just imagine. I mean, that could have been something. Like George.
It could have been.
This guy gets it, right?
He
Mhm.
looks like he's on a date with JJ, and he's like, "That's the kind of look I have on my face when I'm interested in a man."
Well, but here's the thing. Yeah, I Tom, you're right. Again, if it had just been the two of them working on everything, I think we would have had something. But because Kathleen had to come in and be the third wheel, and kind of,
Well, and that's
interject.
partially Bob's fault. He didn't want George anywhere near this with a 10-foot pole.
Wow.
That was the thing. Like, I mean, again, for all the things that I say about the prequels, they are still Star Wars, right? Like,
Mhm.
I was part of the original Phantom Menace, and it took me a while to get to that point. But point being is movies, I'll argue all day long about them. But when it comes to being Star Wars, they're still Star Wars. There's lots of Star Wars in there. There's no Star Wars in this new stuff.
Mhm.
None.
It's been drained out
Up
completely.
until the Mandalorian, then there's little peaks and glimpses here and there. But that's because you got people who worked on it, like Jon Favreau, who loved Star Wars as a kid. Or he wasn't. I mean, he's probably like just at that prime age when it came out, right?
Mhm. I think Jon Favreau is about my age, so he and I are about the same age.
Yeah, and JJ's pretty close in that age. So I do trust him to a sense that if him and George were working together, I think you're right. I think we would have gotten an awesome trilogy. And if you'd have got somebody else to come in there and finish it up, though, like Trevorrow's script was amazing, considering what he had to work with. I mean,
Oh, geez, Trevorrow's script was so close, so close. I mean, that would have been, if they had actually done that, if they had actually shot Trevorrow's script, that would have been the biggest turnaround I'd ever seen. I think the only person that would have been embarrassed would have been Rian Johnson, because it would have really shown how much he dropped the ball.
and it would have elevated The Force Awakens, I think, too. I think you're right.
That was, oh, jeez.
My question there, though, why do we think Colin Trevorrow's script didn't get made? Was it because of studio politics, or
I can
because
tell you
Book of
why.
Henry failed?
That's that was the excuse, but that's not the reason. The reason was because I can tell you, Trevorrow went to them and said, "We just lost Carrie Fisher. You have to change The Last Jedi so I can have Luke Skywalker alive." And they said no. And he said, "Well, then I can't make this work. Because if you've read the script, he was going to pretty much take Carrie Fisher and Luke's role and flip-flop them. Because in that final story was more focused on Carrie Fisher teaching Rey the Force and all that kind of stuff. So instead, all you had to do was just kind of tweak it a little bit and put Luke there instead, right? But they wouldn't fix that. They wouldn't leave Luke alive and let Leia go like Carrie Fisher probably would have wanted. Let's be real. I can tell you right now, Carrie Fisher would be more upset knowing what they did to her had they not just killed her in The Last Jedi. She would have loved a glorious death for her character. And she even said it many times. And I was prepared to let her go, right? Like when they had her floating in space, clearly dead, I'm like, there she goes. I was just welling up now. Think about it when I was sitting in theater. I'm like ready to say goodbye to Princess Leia. Nope, her eyes open up, and lo and behold, she's still alive. And then at the end, we lose Luke. for no good fucking reason. Because he forced himself to death. Because clearly Trevorrow's seen what was wrong with it, and he said, he was working with what he had before, and it's like, this is the only way I can work with it. I mean, you can only push a guy so far, and then they just use like the Book of Henry and shit like that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And probably because he pushed back with KK, and she didn't like that.
Yeah, it would have been nothing. Because it would have, you're talking about editing. By the time Carrie died, Last Jedi was finished. So really, what you're talking about, it really is editing. It would not have cost them anything to go back and reshoot whatever.
Carrie Fisher's not even in the rest of the movie.
That's right. You would have had to edit the entire movie, and it's just snip here, replace this, do this, and then with that scene, that final scene of Luke, you just cut it before he fades. Movie done.
Well, and
that would have been it.
Probably didn't is because, and I understand this to a point. The only reason they probably didn't want to change it is because you have the last moments of Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill together on screen, and you would lose that, sadly. But you know what? You offer it up to the movie gods. You put it on the Blu-ray as a bonus, as a nice little tribute to her. You have the cast and everybody talk about her. And there you go. We are able to let her go, and you move on and you fix the story, because at that point, you're right. If you've read that script, all you do in your mind is just flip-flop Princess Leia and Luke, and the story works.
That's right.
And
but
by
why
the
would
end,
they? Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, by the end, you're rooting for Rey, but go ahead, Six.
Why would they care about Luke and Leia's last scene together if they didn't care about Han, Luke, and Leia's?
I think that was
together?
more Mark Hamill's probably pressure, maybe. I don't know for sure on that one. I don't have an answer. That is a very good question, though.
Did JJ ever? Didn't he address that when he was talking about his regrets? Did he say something about having the three of them?
Oh yeah, I think he did say
In a
that he
while.
regretted never being able to get all three of them together.
Okay.
Which is a crime. It's a fucking crime.
It
Especially when you've got
Yeah.
Lando in the third one too, for Christ's sake.
Oh yeah. I think that it's just a testament to what also Abrams said recently, that they should have had a plan. Yeah, they didn't have a plan. And yeah, sure enough, all these people have come out as incompetent, but also how much of that is Disney pushing for the company to release movies as if they were releasing pancakes or something, because we know how much it took George, for example, to release the movies, like at least 3 years in between episodes, right? Like from episode 1 to episode 2, you have 3 years and so on.
Well, here's the thing. This is also, you got to remember, at this particular time, everything is being run by Bob Iger. And Bob Iger was more in line with working with talent. That was his focus. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Bob Chapek isn't. Bob Chapek is a numbers guy, a business guy. Okay? So the way he views things is being able to get everyone to understand and to go with what they are doing financially and to make the numbers work out. Iger's thing was working with the talent to get that focused. Everybody makes money, or at least the big talent people make money. They can continue to be creative. You sacrifice everything to make sure that the talent is happy so they can continue to provide you the kind of entertainment that you can put out there and start making billions of dollars with. That's the difference. And Iger was, he looked at that as like, this is our big opportunity to go stellar with all of this stuff. When you really think about it, when you think about the fact that they had Pixar, they had Marvel, and now they have Star Wars, and you can do whatever you want. You had the industry by the balls, technically, and you could print money with this stuff. It didn't quite work out because Kathy effed that up too. But
No,
go ahead, Six.
Go ahead, Tom. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it goes right back to what Viking was saying about them being flipped out like pancakes. I've called it the McDonaldization of movies. Before the politics came into it, that's where I came into this, and I'm like, I'm sick and tired of this shit. You can't just churn these out like hamburgers. They're not one the same like the other. And that goes to what you were saying, Keith, was the first 3 films of Star Wars, the first movie damn near killed George.
Yeah.
Like, he went to the hospital thinking he was having a heart attack, and he was having an anxiety attack, and he had exhaustion by the end of the film. And then the second film and the third film cost him his marriage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, You look at somebody who sacrificed a lot, not just that, but almost a decade of his life to that film, to those first 3 films, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what did Kathy sacrifice for this? Nothing. What did JJ sacrifice for this? Nothing. What did Ryan sacrifice for this? Nothing. And that's my point. None of these people put anything into this. One of my favorite movies of all time is Jaws. And I feel like if that movie would have been easy for Steven Spielberg to direct, I've said this before, he would not be Steven Spielberg as we know him now. He would be this director much on a level like a Harvey Korman or maybe a little bit higher, you know, to where it's like, oh yeah, he does these B movies and this and that and the other. Because if that fucking shark would have worked, and if that movie wouldn't have damn near killed him, we would not have gotten the movie out of it that we have now. It would have just been another monster movie, and it wouldn't have not been about the characters as much. And that's what he had to do, is he had to compromise and make it about the characters. You have on the other end, Lucas, he went through all that shit shooting the movie, and then he went through a whole nother war in the fucking editing room, right? And then he went through another war with the studio because they had no faith in this thing. None. In fact, they had so little faith in Star Wars, they were forcing theaters to say, look, if you want, I think it's Edge of Midnight or something like that it was called. Let's put it this way. The movie that they tried to force people to take Star Wars with ended up bombing, but like they were trying, it was supposed to be this big movie of the summer because it was based on one of the bigger books that year and shit like that. I think it's called Edge of Midnight. That movie ended up bombing, but they were forcing theaters are like, if you want Edge of Midnight, you have to take Star Wars. Yeah. Like even the theaters didn't want it at that point because they didn't know what the fuck it was. You know, so like you got like it's hard. I know it's hard for people to remember this, but like George did all this, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted the merchandising rights up front, is because he's like, they ain't gonna sell this movie. I need to sell this movie. You know, and nobody had that going into Star Wars. None of them thought about any of this. They all should have went through like to me, if I was running Star Wars, I'll keep this short, but I would have put everybody through like a training course, right? You're like, you need to understand the history of where this comes from first. Then the second part is learning what the fans expect and why they love the franchise. Because that's another reason why I think people lose sight. Because that was one thing that I got into so many arguments over the Motu thing. Because so many people are, oh, it's just about fucking toys. It's like, yeah, well, you could say the same thing about Star Wars. But you know what? That Star Wars toy or that He-Man toy was some kid's world at one point. And meant so much to them for so many reasons that you could never fucking imagine or grasp, because all you're seeing is your bank account getting bigger, right? You don't give a shit about what these things mean to people. And that's why Trevorrow walked away, probably because he actually gave a shit about this stuff. And he's like, you know what? If you're not even going to take it seriously, then fuck you. You know, like that's
well, and again, that brings us again. That is one of the reasons why Doomcock calls JJ a cultural locus, because he really, I don't think he really cares about a lot of the stuff that he's involved with. He made it perfectly clear how he felt about Star Trek. Okay, he made it perfectly clear how he felt about it. Ironically, one of the few people on it that truly cared deeply was the one that they got rid of, which was Alex Kurtzman's former partner, who was a big Trek
Robert
fan.
Orci.
Yeah, Robert Orci was a huge Star Trek fan.
Well, yeah, because he wrote Star Trek 3 and his version was too Trekky.
Yeah. And then, you know, you look at where Star Trek Discovery came from, and they got rid of Brian for being difficult, but also he was a huge lifelong Trek fan, you know, in favor of Secret Hideout and Alex Kurtzman, who, again, Kurtzman all but celebrated the fact that he was never a Star Trek man, and they gave him all of that. You know, this is where this industry is right now. Anyone that is able to produce quick, fast, and can kiss ass, you've pretty much got a future with the way that the entertainment industry is right now.
Yeah.
And it also goes to... Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Viking.
I was just going to point out that this also goes around to what we were saying at the beginning, or at some point when we said these people don't understand the products they are working with, and that also Marcia Lucas said, they don't understand it, and that's a key point. If you remember back in the day when George Lucas was making Star Wars, of course there was no fan of Star Wars because it was new, it was a new thing. And in the case of directors, producers, and everything, he also could have had a very hard time to find the right people had they not understood what it was all about. Like Irving Kushner, he understood what it was about. He understood it. He didn't need to be a fan. And that's also another thing that many people don't see. Like, okay, so he's a fan, or he or she mentioned to be a fan, so then it's going to be a good product. No, it's not about that. It's about you understanding the whole thing. And if you're a fan, you know, in addition to you understanding the thing, if you're a fan, well, great. But if you don't understand it, then you're going to fail, you know.
And that's you know, one of the things about something like even Wrath of Khan, as you know, you had stated before, Tom. Wrath of Khan is one of those films where you were dealing with a director, in this particular case, Nicholas Meyer, who was not a Star Trek fan, but who came to understand what Star Trek was. He took the time to understand exactly what it was and was able to make a film that people liked, that hardcore Star Trek fans loved. You know, that's what it's about. You don't really have to be the biggest fan in the world, but you at least have to understand what the property is you're dealing with is about. You got to do that. I don't care if it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Halloween, it can be anything. You've got to understand that. And if you don't, you're wasting everybody's time.
I really like JJ Star Trek, and I saw them before I'd never seen original Trek. And in the last few months I've been watching the show. And now looking back, JJ Star Trek, it's like it's a completely different, it has nothing to do with Star Trek. I still enjoy
Very
it,
little.
but comparing the two, now I understand why Star Trek fans are not fans of JJ Star Trek. Now I get it.
Well, look, speaking as a lifelong Trek fan, I can at least say for me that I don't hate JJ's Trek. I look at it as the only logical way you could have moved forward, given how old everybody else was and the fact that some of the actors had already
The
died.
problem with JJ's Trek is really Into Darkness. Let's be real here. Like
that was
that,
the worst one.
and even though that has some great scenes in it, again, like the first film was not bad. The third
It
film
was
is
decent.
the most Star Trek, even though JJ has nothing to do with that one, but it is his cast, his world, whatever.
Yeah.
It's Into Darkness, because Into Darkness is where he made the biggest mistake, and that was you tried to make a movie for the fans, but you also tried to make a movie for new fans. But the problem is new fans have no frame of reference. And those fans that have a frame of reference are not going to accept this, because you've given us really close to what we had before with the characters that you brought in, with the actors that you brought in. I just talked about this on Midnight's Edge in the morning, actually, where like that was one of the crowning things I thought he did with it was the cast, because he won me over with that cast. And but the problem is now is you're introducing a character that is very, you know, big in the lore of Star Trek, and you're, instead of telling a time period piece that you like, or like redoing Space Seed, you're redoing Wrath of Khan, right? No,
with a few Space Seed stuff.
Yeah, and to anybody who doesn't know who Khan is, it doesn't mean shit. And anybody who does know who Khan is like, no, you're getting it wrong, you idiot. You know, so you've lost both bases there. They should have just made him that guy that nobody knew who he was. It would have made more sense, because there is some really good stuff in Into Darkness, and I like how Into Darkness takes up more of the idea that, okay, we're in a Star Trek timeline here where we are much more militaristic than the other one because of all the events that happened here. Plus you have Peter Weller's wonderful character. And you also have that great scene where Pike gets hurt, where all those people are, and I love that because like Kirk's sitting there and he's like, he finally dawns on him. He's like, oh shit, we got a lot of very important people in one place right now at the same time. This is a setup. Something is not good. Something is not right. And I love scenes like that when you have that, because they're very well put, when they're very well put together. And JJ's good at that kind of stuff. But it's the other part of it he didn't get, right? It was the part that somebody should have took him aside and said, look, JJ, nobody's going to give a shit if this is Khan. And those who do give a shit are not going to be happy with you. So what does he do? He goes and lies to us. publicly.
Yep.
It's like, dude, you're busted.
Yeah. And again, I always had thought myself as a fan that if they would have tried to stick to kind of like a temporary version of this universe where there is a beginning, middle, and an end, where what happened with Spock was something that was more of a temporary effect, that at the end of the third movie, that you would have found out that this entire construct was beginning to collapse in on itself. Because the thing about Star Trek Into Darkness is it condensed everything about Khan and Kirk and the crew into one film. That's the other thing about Into Darkness. There is the first meeting of Khan and the crew in the original Star Trek, and then you have a 10 to 20 year jump in period between them first meeting Khan and then what happened in Wrath of Khan. Whereas Into Darkness condensed everything into one movie. And I always thought
it did it in a dumb way, yeah.
Yeah, it did it in a dumb way. But I mean, I always thought that considering that everything was artificial in the way that it happened, you could have made it to where it was an entire collapsing type thing. Where at the end of the movie, you realize that all of this is collapsing.
Well, let me give it to you this way. Like, bringing Khan in now was not a bad idea, right? Like, the setup is there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you disrupted the timeline. Now you disrupted when Kirk runs into Spock, but that doesn't, or when Kirk runs into Khan, but that doesn't make sense because they bumped into him on accident in the first fucking place.
Yes.
So, okay, it makes sense that if you're in a more militaristic time now, you want to bring in somebody who actually knows this stuff. That makes sense. So you're speeding up the process of bringing Khan into the story. Well, what they did is they're like, oh, well, let's get clever. So this speeds up the process of the Wrath of Khan story without thinking about, like you just said, Keith, you need that 20 years of history for Khan to be seething at Kirk. Not just because all at the end of the space siege, he doesn't like hate Kirk all that much. It's just more or less, he just wanted to take over his ship. Right. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, he's seen him as like a kind of an equal for the times in a lot of ways. And there was a mutual respect there of sorts. You need that 20 years of Khan going through the shit he went through, losing his wife, all that shit to happen for him to be like, I spit at thee.
Well, he forgot about him. And that's like, really the thing. He forgot about him. He left him. He gave him what he wanted. He gave him a planet. But
in this version, there's no reason for Khan not to work with Spock and Kirk.
That's right.
When you get them in that scene where they're facing him in the thing, and he's like, I'm Khan. It's like, and motherfucker, what? So the flip should have been that Khan would have worked with Spock and Kirk, but the story's stupid because why the fuck would you put all your people in torpedoes? Like, none of that shit makes sense. It's like you're worried about saving your people, so you put them in. Oh my God.
Well, because they couldn't figure out a logical reason to allow all of these superhumans to be running around. I mean, if you kept it to just Khan, you could understand being put with him. You know, he has certain limitations, even as an individual, he was dangerous. Yeah. You give him 30 other people just like him with the strength, the speed, and the motivation. And then the question becomes, well, you know, what are they taking over today? They could take over Earth. They could take over Klingon space. They could take over the Romulans. They would end up running the whole thing, you know? And so I get it, but I agree. The whole thing was jacked. That entire film was jacked is really what it was. And again, they were trying to placate and spin all these plates, but it wasn't working. You know, I just wish they had found a different way of doing it, you know, because I do like Khan as a character. He is all the stuff that you hear Spock talk about, OG Spock in that film, and as I pointed out to people, the Khan that he's talking about is really the way Khan was during Space Siege. He's not talking about the Wrath of Khan. When OG Spock is telling younger Spock how dangerous he is, he's talking about the original version of Khan. You know, dangerous dude. Dangerous dude.
By the time we get to Wrath of Khan, he's a one-track mind, man. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's for you to get him to that point. You can't start there and just be like, all of a sudden he's going to start doing the Wrath of Khan type shit when he has no frame of reference to give a shit about. He literally should not give a shit about Kirk.
No, he shouldn't. For a lot of you younger people, to talk about Khan in this way, he's Killmonger. But if Killmonger had the power of the Black Panther innately, if you'd been born with that stuff, how dangerous would he have been?
To Khan, Spock would be a pussy.
Yeah.
He would mildly respect, Spock's whole thing about being a Vulcan, because like he would kind of mildly respect that because he has a logical brain and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But he would still probably see him as an inferior being, of course, because that's the other thing you got to remember is Khan sees everybody as inferior to him. The only reason he gives a shit about Kirk is because Kirk's the one who put him in the position he was in. Before that, he didn't give a shit. He just wanted his ship. He wanted to go conquer worlds. That's what he does. That's it. And that makes him probably the most dangerous person in the universe, because nobody would see him coming. And that's another reason why he doesn't work within the confines of Into Darkness, because even if you had all his people kept as, he would not compromise. He wouldn't. If Khan had been able to get all his people safely out of those tubes, it would not have taken them any time at all to destabilize the entire planet and take over pretty much all of the Federation. See, that should have been the movie right there, Keith. Yeah. That should have been the movie. It's like, okay, if you're bringing Khan out now, what would be different in this timeline than if you had him in Space Seed? And that would be it. It'd be him and his people trying to take over, basically. Yeah, everything, instantly. And look, I was just one guy versus the Klingons. Look at what he was able to do with the Klingons, or to the Klingons. Think of 40 people along with Khan, all like him. I'm telling you, that you're right, Tom. That probably should have been the film, but that pretty much was, I think, the direction that they were originally going to go with Captain America 3, if you really think about it. But that type of storyline is what they should have gone with. But that's how dangerous Khan and his people were.
This is also another example of how important it is to really know what you are working with, because people now, directors, writers, what have you, they want to deconstruct, they want to remake, they want to reestablish without really knowing where to start and where they are coming from. Mm-hmm. Which is why what Tom was saying about, if I ran Star Wars or Lucasfilm, for example, I would give people history classes. We are talking about very old franchises that have lots and lots of information going on, and it is important to know where we are coming from to understand where we are going, and also to deconstruct the characters. And another important thing, deconstruct them, but then put them back together again at the end. Otherwise, it doesn't really work, and there is no reason for you to deconstruct a certain character or a certain situation if you're not going to build back from that or build something new,
And that's the reason why you can't just willy-nilly pick things up. When you look at everybody here, remember the movie The Avengers, not Marvel's The Avengers, but the film The Avengers.
The update of the TV
of the old television series. Yeah. The thing, when I first heard that movie was coming, I, as a fan, was excited because I was hoping that they would have all of the Avengers in that movie. Because a lot of people here in the States, when the Avengers became a hit, was what the character of Emma Peel was introduced in like the 4th or 5th season of the show. So for a lot of people here in America, they only know the show based on what it was during the 5th season. Okay? They don't know what the show was like in its initial first season and then the seasons between the 2nd season and the 5th season. They have no idea what that show was like or who a lot of the other characters that were introduced. John Steed was at the center of a massive group of spies whom they had played him off, though, as being one-to-one with different people. Okay? So he was the only constant in all of the different versions of the Avengers. And I was hoping that if you're going to do a big screen version, that you would just introduce all the other characters and have them all together. Because it was a mix of different personalities, of which John Steed worked off of everyone. Okay? We didn't get that. What we got was a film that, unless you were very familiar with the show, none of it really made a lick of sense to you. It was kind of weird. It was very unusual. It was kind of, 60s avant-garde in a way. It's a film that tried to please the original OG fans, yet tried to appeal to new people, and it didn't work. It didn't work really for anyone, and that's unfortunate because you had Sean Connery in the movie. And the irony is that the woman who ended up playing Pussy Galore in Goldfinger,
Playing who?
Pussy Galore in Goldfinger.
I just wanted to hear you say it again.
Pussy Galore. And that actress actually got her big break working on the Avengers. She was the second partner for John Steed and the first woman to ever team with him, and the first person to wear the kind of black leather originally that the character Emma Peel would make famous. And so there is a connection between the Bond franchise and the Avengers television series. The Avengers television series, I think, predates the Bond films a little bit. So looking at everybody's response. Again, another example of how you really need to have a better understanding and to have a plan for bringing back whatever you do. Now, there are people that enjoy the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie, while aspects of that were kind of different than what we had in the series. It was still nice to see. Very well cast. And again, why they have never made a sequel to that, Henry Cavill is basically near perfect in that. And so unless they're going to make him James Bond, they should have another Man from U.N.C.L.E. film with him in it. He'd be great in it. You have to have an understanding, though. You can't just treat the original fans as sort of like, hey, we'll put in a few things here, we'll keep you slightly entertained, but make it for all new fans, because these all new fans have no idea what the original property is. And you've got to find balance. You've got to do that.
Which is why I like the article from the Hollywood Reporter about Mr. Schlossberg, who is the showrunner to Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying these things.
Yeah.
He's saying you have to understand your audience, your audience from the past, those who like the original thing, in order to make your show successful as well.
Mm-hmm.
But by ignoring them, you're just forgetting your fan base. It's true that you need to appeal to the younger audience, but you also don't forget, please, your fan base.
And that's the reason why I desperately would love to get my hands on Brian Fuller's original script for Star Trek Discovery, because from what I've heard, it's fantastic. I recognize that whistle.
I'll see what I can do.
And that Brian Fuller, again, that's an example of someone who was a fan, who had a really good understanding of Star Trek, because like me, he grew up with it, and to toss him out in favor of someone who was not a fan was probably the biggest mistake, even though from a corporate standpoint, you tossed out Brian Fuller in favor of someone who loves to just kiss the butt of every executive, and who is, he's quick for whatever reason. His stories don't make sense, but guess what? That's not that important. As long as you have good representation on the show, that is even more important than plot. So that's the reason why Star Trek is where it is right now, and why their films will never really truly amount to much from here on out, because they aren't really operating in a referential way or with a good understanding of what Star Trek was, because they don't care about it. and I think in their heart of hearts, Kathleen Kennedy and a lot of her people really don't care about Star Wars. They just care about what they're able to affect with Star Wars. They care about the platform that it gives them. But there's way too many things out there in the entertainment industry. Wow. Thanks, Zax. There's way too many people out there in the entertainment industry that feel that way about a lot of classic IP. It's all just a means to an end. Unfortunately, that seems to be the direction that we're headed, and that's bad. That's real bad. Every so often you'll be lucky enough to find someone who gives a darn about what they're using. But whether it's Masters of the Universe or whatever else.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let me at least then just get us back to discussing this. Now, we've been talking a lot about Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars, and we've covered a lot with where Star Trek is right now and Doctor Who. Is there any other IP that you could see right now that has matched the level that Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who have reached that you think is still good? It's still kind of free from current political representation and ideology for right now.
Cobra Kai, Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I agree with Cobra Kai, yeah.
Same here.
They have a little bit of work, but they know their way around it so that it doesn't sound preachy or like inserting, ham-fisted or anything like that. So I would say, yeah, Cobra Kai.
And I think that they added that because if they didn't, then it would look like they were purposefully avoiding it.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe would have brought more attention than just throwing a little here, throwing a little there.
Yeah. And still it works. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like they are preaching. It doesn't feel like virtue signaling for the sake of it. It's organic.
Mm.
Well, then can I ask, has anyone seen Foundation yet?
No, I've never heard of it.
No,
Not yet.
Apple TV's
Not yet.
Foundation.
What is it?
It's based on the books of Isaac Asimov, and it's a television series based on really one of the seminal science fiction works called Foundation. The story is of a man who has created the ability through science to be able to use facts and figures to predict accurately the future. It's basically a time machine like thing, but without the machine to take you there. He could use numbers and everything else to be able to ascertain what the future is like and inform the people, hey, this is what's going to happen. Our civilization will fall. Mankind is going to go through all this darkness, but I can at least tell you at what point we will be able to come back and rebuild everything and how to make it better. And if I can help you navigate through that, whatever damage is done can be mitigated, if not outright avoided, to save us from being extinct as a human species.
I think that Hollywood has ignored sci-fi fantasy books. I'm pretty involved in BookTube, and there's that stuff's gold. And don't ask me for titles because I have performance anxiety, but there's so much out there that they could take and adapt and put to film, and they already have that fan base. They've already sold millions of copies of the books, and I don't understand why all this. They're constantly rebooting, and they're constantly changing what is already perfect. And I don't understand why they don't. Why is there not more taking books and adapting those into movies and TV shows?
Because comics are easier. They offer one
Yeah.
or two steps that literary books don't have. One, visuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a lot of the hard work that has already been done with comics, and as far as the MCU is concerned, part of the reason why they were able to do much of what they were able to do is because of Marvel's Ultimate line and the use of Samuel L. Jackson's likeness in the Ultimates comic book that eventually led to them, eventually led to Sam Jackson contacting them and them putting him in the Iron Man movie, and everything just taking off from there. A majority of what fans like about the MCU comes from the Ultimate line of Marvel Comics. To be honest, the MCU has made some changes to the characters. Tony Stark is really a very wealthy asshole in every respect in the comics. He's a likable, lovable guy in the MCU, but the dude really is an asshole, minus being that funny.
Yeah, he is.
And then, they've made tweaks to characters like Captain America. Captain America, what's that line that they use in the films? I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. Yeah, well, that's not true. In the comics, Captain America, Steve Rogers is actually born in Manhattan. But it actually sounds better for him to say he's from Brooklyn. That's how Hollywood can change things. You can tweak certain characters in a certain way to have certain responses and to get and grab people. You can have things like again, you can have things like, say, all the different versions of Bram Stoker's Dracula, that Hollywood has attempted versus what the book actually has and what the book actually is about. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, is another good example. All the different film versions versus what the book is actually about. Very few, I can count on one hand the films that have actually properly adapted Frankenstein, because there is a lot to that book.
That's a great IP. Love Frankenstein. That book is amazing.
Oh, geez, just the Arctic alone, those scenes is just, but you don't really get that. I at least thank Francis Ford Coppola for doing Bram Stoker's for directing Bram Stoker's Dracula, even though they added a few things. I don't mind adding stuff as long as you don't take away anything from the original novel or IP. I don't really mind adding a few things to help get an audience in there. So I thought that, I enjoy that movie a lot.
Well, not just he found a way to build upon not just the original book, which, like you said, he didn't really take anything away from, but he added to the original, historical story that led to the book being written in the first place. Hence, it mixed so well with the two. And again, that's kind of one of my favorite versions of the Dracula story. And because I love how it combines the lore of, Vlad with Dracula and brings them together wholly, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I like the story of why, it was an interview with Gary Oldman about why he took the part. And it was a line from the movie. The line that sold him was, "I have crossed oceans of time, to find you." And it was just like, that is both.
That's a panty dropper line right there.
Worked in the movie, didn't it?
That. Woo, I swoon at that.
And again, you can. I have often said that movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula, is a really good date film. because it's very romantic, along with even Highlander. You know, when you confess your love for a woman and you truthfully look her in her eyes and you tell her, "My name is Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod, and I have been alive for 500 years," and you stab yourself. Some women really get off on that, you know.
Not this girl.
It's just, you know, obviously he knows what he's doing in bed. So, 500 years, you have to at least learn something.
Yeah.
But
I hope so.
it's just, again, there's a lot of really cool properties out there, and you're right, Six. It makes you wonder why Hollywood only sticks with certain ones. I wish I had your answers.
Well,
for you.
I think to go off what you said, Keith, is you're not wrong, but it's the ability to sell something that people know. It's that prepackaged.
Mhm.
You know, people know Superman, people know Spider-Man, people know Batman, people know Mario, people know Sonic. You know, all these things are easy to sell. People know Ninja Turtles, whatever it is, and instead of bringing something new to the table, they just want to redo the other thing, but then they can't feel like they've actually added anything to it without in some way deconstructing it and putting their voice into it. And that's the biggest problem. See, is when you've had like people like, I'm glad Keith brought up before, Nicholas Meyer. Instead of him coming going, well, what can I do to bring my voice to Star Trek? No, his first thing was, okay, well, what makes Star Trek, right? You know, and he watched some episodes and he did some research. And he's like, oh, okay, so it's Horatio Hornblower in space. He came to that conclusion on his own, which is amazing because that's basically what Gene Roddenberry says about it. Like, that's what it was. And his first direction to Patrick Stewart, when Patrick Stewart goes, well, what do I do? What is my character? What is Star Trek? And he's like, you're Horatio Hornblower in space. There you go. Mm-hmm. So, like, you know, it's just this fundamental idea of that he broke it down in almost like a scientific way and through his brain, which is just, you know, the way it breaks down stories, because he's a great storyteller and he's great with characters. And he's like, oh, okay, I get it. All right. So, and then he watched Space, you know, and then I can't remember the other guy, his name, who worked with him. He co-wrote part 4 with him and stuff too. I can't think of his name, but the other guy there.
It was because he tried to take over the IP.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was Hard Bennett.
Yeah. So like he's like, yeah, we got the Space Seed story we're gonna go with, and you know, so you know, Nicholas kind of picked up on that, and he's like, yeah, I can run with this, you know, and it's a revenge plot. It's, you know, it's all this kind of stuff, and he just simplified it and just put Star Trek into it in a way that worked. And instead of being like, oh, how do I put my stamp on this? No, it wasn't about putting his stamp on it. It was about putting a stamp back on Star Trek, right? Mm-hmm. It was making Star Trek cool again, but not in the J.J. Abrams kind of sense.
And again, that's what also, at least for me personally, makes Star Trek the Motion Picture a good movie. It's not a great or easy movie for new fans to get into, though. There was no easy way into that film. But for me, it was a near perfect film because you had a director that understood what science fiction was, and he understood, at least with Gene Roddenberry's help, he understood where you could place these characters by taking them further into their lives, but finding a way of bringing them back and allowing them to remain who they were without going overboard.
Well, and he also got that Kirk, Spock, and Bones were the heart, soul, and logic, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and as the three of them together make up a whole.
Yes.
And that's where he asked the question, what happens if you take a piece of that away?
Yep.
You know, with Spock, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, and that's a big ask of the audience as well. And that's one thing you gotta get yourself into these things and realize, who are these characters? What do they stand for? What do they serve the story? How do they serve the story, I should say? You know, and that's questions that I don't think a lot of these people ask. The first thing they is, well, how can we diversify this? How can we change these characters to make them more diverse? And can we get some more LGBTQ representation in here? And we need some more strong women. And, you know, when you start doing that kind of shit, it goes against the reason why you do it, because The great example that everybody always goes to is Alien. Dan O'Bannon and I'm forgetting the other guy's name who wrote that script. They didn't write that script with any intention of saying, this is a man, this is a woman, blah, 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 blah. No, they wrote all those roles with very sexual neutral names so you could plug in whichever actor that Ridley Scott felt was the best one for the role. Ripley was never written as a woman. Ripley is just a character.
Ron Shushet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great example. Is like they don't go about creating characters like this anymore, right?
Yeah. And again, it is. You do not see people going into IP or really going into any kind of script and saying, what is this about? When you are adapting something from one medium to another, you have to have an innate understanding, first of all, of what makes this worthy of that attempt. It doesn't matter if it's a novel or a television show or even another film. You have to understand that before you can go and do something new with that. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't take the time to do that. It's all about me, and how I filter it through how I see things. Because it's an easy way out, really.
But I have to dip, guys.
Oh, okay, Jason.
And so does Viking, and I probably have to go here soon too. So let's get Jason
let
a chance to say.
Yeah, so just tell us where to find you, Viking, and Jace.
Viking can start if you want to. Okay, I'm gonna start. Okay.
Yeah.
You can find me on 540 Studio. You can find me here on Pop Culture Minefield and other channels. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be here. I know this Sunday we might finally get to do the Star Wars show that we have been working our asses off to do. But I really have to dip. I just want to say thank you to the community, everyone in the chat, the panel, and everything. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jace. I love people who love the prequel.
I do. I love the prequels and original trilogy. So there's only 6 movies. It's only 6 movies.
Yep.
Well,
that's why I'm 6.
And just remember, life's too short. Make the most of it. And yeah.
Thank you, Jace. Viking.
Well, everyone, it's been a pleasure to be here. You can always find me in my own channel, Viking Out of Time. And you can also find me here on Pop Culture Minefield, TGIF. And occasionally every Wednesday, or every other Wednesday, rather, with Fat Stevens, we've got this portrait where we also discuss pop culture and all of that. And, check out my videos. Recently, I've been talking about precisely Marcia Lucas's comments about Kathleen Kennedy and all that. So more stuff coming up in the following days. And it's been a pleasure always, as usual, here with Tom, with Keith, with everyone here in the panel and in the chat.
Thank you very much, Viking.
Gary couldn't be bothered, though. So,
how about you, Tom?
Yeah, you can find me, of course, at Midnight's Edge After Dark. Of course, it's always fun to get to hang out with you guys and chit chat about all this fun stuff. So,
Tom, you are an absolute freaking legend, is what you are. I mean, you are
I don't know about
everywhere.
that.
You are everywhere, dude. I mean, I can't turn around and do anything without finding you somewhere near there or having just been there. You're just killing it, left, right, and center.
Tom's the town bicycle.
I'm the town bicycle. Everybody's had a turn. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, thanks. I think
you get around.
I get around.
Round, get around. I get around.
Yeah. Wow, Stephen Auden.
All right. Hopefully this weekend, if everybody's healthy, I will be on Rambling Canucks channel for karaoke Saturday night. Hopefully Andre will be back on his feet and we can do King Conan this weekend. And I know Latino Slant is going to have a birthday stream, so you can probably find me there.
Yeah.
And my recommendation, since we brought up the subject of potential franchises, I'd like to recommend the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. It's kind of like if the Terminator was played by Alan Tudyk. It's kind of darkly funny. It's about this cyborg that becomes self-aware and decides to go rogue and do his own thing.
Wow.
You know, he gets in the first book, he's placed on a mission to protect this group of scientists. And his way of thinking is, I like you, I'll do my job, but the second you fall behind, I'm just going to leave you there. It's like I'll do my job, but honestly, I could give a shit either way. It's really very. It's got some dark moments. It is very funny, but it's really this kind of character study of this guy who was once human but is more robot now, and it's fascinating. I think there's 6 books in now, so I recommend that.
Cool. Okay, Zax, the amazing Zax.
Thanks, Keith. When I'm not here, you guys can probably find me hiding in the bushes outside of Six's house. I just hanging around, helping out where I can, having some fun. Yeah, that's it. I don't really have a channel. I don't, but I do like helping out where I can.
You know what? This is your channel now. If you don't have an official channel, this is your channel. This is where you can find Zax. Pop Culture Minefield.
Can I sell it?
Well, I'll have to ask Gerry, but you know.
I like being in control of this. It's like you all are chained up in my basement.
Again.
I'm sorry.
You know, Six, you are just phenomenal. I love having you around. You are fantastic.
Thanks.
So why don't you tell us where you're going to be?
You can find me in Tom's chat.
Ooh. Well.
Yeah, that's honestly that's what I do. I mod for people. I love Pop Culture Minefield. Gerry's been Gerry's an amazing friend. He's put up with my struggles both on YouTube and in real life, and I love that he lets me be a part of his channel. And Keith's such a cool guy. He has a bigger heart than and I know a lot of people know this about him, but he has an amazing heart, and I appreciate him. And Tom's really had my back through the last couple months. I can always count on him. So I mod for Tom. That's like my job that I get paid for in sexual favors.
Oh,
that's not true. I made that part up. But, yeah.
Look, I find you.
I have a stack of IOUs from Tom.
I send her all those pictures of Nixon. What? How
about you, Keith? What do you got?
I got whatever comes up on Pop Culture Minefield, or when I'm lucky enough to be with Fat Steven Seagal. I'm over there with Babylon 5, and I think we are now on season 3, so things are really getting good as far as that is concerned. I just got to say, I do this because I love this, and thank you, memes. I do this because I love this, and I'm lucky enough to have Gerry Cassell as my brother. I think the world of him.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to get a chance to be with everyone. Six, Tom, everybody. I really enjoy doing this. And if I'm allowed to do this again next week, I will. If not, that's fine. I've had a good time up to now. Thank you very much, everyone. As far as anything else cool to sell, let me just say this: Doom Patrol just dropped. The latest season of Doom Patrol has just dropped. So if you're lucky enough to have HBO Max, I think they just dropped 3 episodes right now that you can watch. I've only seen the first episode. Yeah, look, to me, that is the best thing left out of what used to be the Arrowverse. To me, it's the only thing worth watching is Doom Patrol. Other than that, let me just say I am reading what should be good reading for anyone. Hey, Hollywood, stick with Jack Kirby if you want something really cool to do. Okay, any of his ideas, and Warner Brothers, I'm talking to you. Any of his ideas, you should be adapting right now. Okay, you cannot go wrong with Jack Kirby. And make a biography, a movie about his life. You'll learn a lot. So I guess that's about it for TGIF. So for Tom, Steven, Six, Zach, Gary Cassell, I'm Keith. It has been fantastic having you. And remember, always be kind. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Remember, you can find us at Pop Culture Minefield on both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again.